Even long ago, our women made quilts that told stories about our families and our history. I like to think that the stories of our lives as women still make up a kind of quilt. Our stories give each other hope and teach life's lessons. They bring us together and keep us connected. And when all our stories are pieced together, they can show us paths to follow. As women who have had breast cancer, we must tell our sisters, mothers, and daughters that it can happen to any of us. Let our words be the pattern of a new quilt we will make. We are survivors. Listen to our stories.
I had just celebrated my 20th class reunion, and I had lost weight, and I was just so excited, you know. And I went to work, and I came home, and I was just sitting there on the side of my bed after taking a shower, and, you know, I just started checking myself. And I started checking my breasts, which is something that I always did do. And while I was checking my breasts, then I noticed a lump that kind of was situated almost under my arm. And I just took it, it was like a little knot, and I just wiggled it back and forth, and I was like, man, what is this?
Well, when I felt the lump, I was on my way to Mass, and I wanted to put it behind my head. And I just felt kind of low, and I was like, I knew what it was before they even told me, you know. And because I never felt this before, so I had the idea that this was it, okay?
I woke up one morning and my breast was so sore. And I said, oh, I must have slept wrong, you know, and went on. So during the day, it just kept hurting. So I called the doctor and went that Monday. That was a Saturday. So that Monday I went, and he said, oh, we need to send you for a mammogram. It's probably just a cyst. I said, fine. Went Wednesday, took the mammogram, and it was okay. There was a lump. It was like on the outside of the breast, on top here. So I felt okay about it, since the doctor had said that it was probably a cyst, you know. So then after, it was the next day on Thursday morning at work, the lady called and she said, we need for you to come in and take another mammogram. And I said, oh, sure, that's no problem. I'll be there on Monday. She said, no, honey, listen to me. She said, I want you to stop what you are doing and come now. And when I hung up the phone, I was like, okay, this is more than a cyst.
My older sister, not the oldest, but the older sister, was diagnosed with breast cancer. And that was my introduction into this world, because it is a world. And she had a battle that she didn't quite win. She didn't win. So in January of 1990, she passed. 2 days before she died, another sister was diagnosed with breast cancer. And so there we go. Because of their experience, I had to be very educated and very vigilant about my own breast health.
I guess I had my head in the sand. I didn't know of anybody in my family who had had breast cancer, my immediate family.
My mother didn't have it, my sisters didn't have it, my grandmother didn't have it. You know, I didn't want to know anything about this.
I knew about breast cancer. You know, I had read up on breast cancer, and I guess I kind of thought I knew too much about it, because that's why I thought I don't fit the profile.
Around that time,
we were hearing that if no one in your family's had it, you're safe. So I was feeling safe.
A lot of times people will get breast cancer that don't have a family history. You know, they don't think it's going to happen to them. I may have been guilty. I think I was kind of guilty of that, but it can happen to anyone.
I always, did what I was supposed to. I went and got my annual mammograms, and there was really no history in my family. So as far as me developing breast cancer, I would have thought I would have developed diabetes first because that does run in my family. That was always my fear, not breast cancer.
I was really surprised because I was like, I'm 38. What I'm doing with breast cancer? And I just assumed breast cancer would happen to women like in their 50s. I didn't have any idea, 38, that I would have breast cancer.
I probably had that in the back of my mind as well, that you're diagnosed in your 60s or so, and I guess that's why it was never a concern for me when I went to get my mammogram, because I figured I was too young.
You just never know. There's not a history of breast cancer in my family. I'm the first one. I'm the last of 7. I'm 54 years old, so you just never know.
So after the needle point biopsy, I went to the doctor and he says, it is cancer. And I said, okay, and just walked out. I mean, I didn't, it was just okay. And driving home, I stopped at my primary care physician's office. And by the time I pulled up on the parking lot, I remember tears was just coming from nowhere. They was just... So I walked in, and the receptionist, she said, Miss Hill is here, and she's crying, doctor, she's crying. And he said, tell her to come here. So when I went in to him, he took both of my hands, and he said, we're going to get through this. He said, we never know the reasons of things or why things happen. He says, but we are going to get through this. He said, I'm going to make sure you have the best. And it was from that point I just wiped my eyes, and I was okay. I was okay.
They were getting me prepped to go into surgery, and I was laying there. My mother-in-law, my 2 sisters, and the doctor and my husband were kind of standing around the bed. And so the doctor, he was saying everything that he was going to do and everything. And then he said, before we go into surgery, I would like to have a moment of prayer. And so we held hands, and he prayed, and it was like a chill had come over me, and I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Life has been good, okay? After being a 10-year survivor and relocating back to St. Louis, I have retired from the military. I have a husband. I have children. I have grandchildren, and I'm happy.
Sometimes it seems like the way we've done things in the past has kept us from getting where we need to go. Like our fear of talking to each other about cancer. Silence and secrecy have kept us from taking steps to protect ourselves and our families. Sharing our stories can change that.
I didn't know that cancer ran in my family until after I was diagnosed. And then I started questioning everybody and asking all these questions. And that's when I learned that cancer ran in my family. That's when I learned that my cousin had passed 2 years prior with breast cancer.
I never thought about it being in the family because I'm from an old family, and you do not ask those questions. That's taboo.
My parents were older. They were in their 50s when they adopted me. So I was always surrounded by older people, and they just didn't talk about cancer. If they did, you would hear them whisper. They didn't talk about just didn't talk about it.
Cancer was one of those hush-hush subjects. If someone got it, it was not important for the family to discuss it with everyone.
You don't talk about it because you're afraid. You don't know what people are going to say.
I'm finding out that people had breast cancer and I didn't even know about it because it was a secret. They did it and they didn't ever get out and tell someone about it. Well, this can happen, but you can live. I'm a living witness. That was something that was done secret, you know. And so if they had breast cancer, you didn't know. You only knew the ones who didn't survive.
I guess my aunt survived maybe about 2 to 3 years with it, okay? But it was a hidden secret. And I remember I wanted to have summer jobs or whatever the case may be. And my mother told me, you can have a summer job. You're going to go to Kinloch, that's a small black community in St. Louis, and you're going to take care of my sister and just be there for her for whatever she needed, okay? My aunt had 3 boys. And, you know, boys are great, but in this circumstance, girls are better. And I would just help her or do whatever she needed to do. But it was kind of a secret because my mom told me, but my aunt never really told it.
By not talking about it, I don't know, I guess people are not aware, you know, and I guess people don't talk about it for whatever reason. But not talking about it, people are not educated.
We need to be sharing so that we don't have to share, you know, we don't have to have some of the same journeys.
We don't have to die from this anymore. We need to talk about it and tell it. Because when we was coming up, we didn't talk about cancer until the person died. I didn't know that people live. And it wasn't until my ordeal that I started meeting people that 33 years breast cancer survivors and 40 years, you know, I didn't know that. I didn't know it. I just thought you died.
I hope that other women can see that, you know, although I've had breast cancer, although thousands and thousands of women have had breast cancer, we've survived. You know, many of us have survived.
I love wearing my pink pin because it strikes up a conversation. And a lot of women who don't know things about breast cancer, I get a chance to have a conversation and tell them. And a lot of women who said, I'm afraid to go to the doctor, I said, let me know what day it is, I'll meet you there. And I love doing that. I love it. And a lot of them wouldn't go if someone didn't tell them about it.
I told the guys that I worked with, you know, make sure that your wives, your moms, your daughters get themselves checked.
Even in church, I would get up and I made an announcement and ask them to really take care of themselves and get a proper exam. When my minister came to visit me, I told him about it, he and his wife, and I just shared it with everybody I talked to.
It would not be any way that I would not tell my 17-year-old niece that she needs to become more aware of her breast health, because in the end, it could save her life.
I talked to everybody. I didn't keep it a secret now. Everybody knew I had breast cancer because I told them.
I believe the wisdom we gain from life experience is a mighty force. When we share it with each other through our stories, we all grow stronger. Many of our stories have the power to change lives. Some of our stories can even help save lives.
If I wasn't going to the clinic,
getting my mammogram, I wouldn't be here right now today. But the mammogram really helped save lives.
The mammogram is what really found that I had a problem.
I never felt a lump, so I would not have known I had breast cancer had I not been getting a mammogram every year.
I kind of look at it like I'm grateful. I'm not happy that I have this disease, but I'm so thankful that I did have the mammograms at an early time so that, you know, I could get the best treatment that's possible.
I had gone to the doctor's office just for a regular checkup, and during my visit, he asked me if I had a mammogram. I said, yeah, I had one at the beginning of the year. He started looking through his records and he said, but I don't see any. I said, well, I think for sure I had one. And then I said, well, I really don't know. He kept checking, He said, I don't see any record of your mammogram. And then he said, okay, we'll just set you up for a mammogram. I said, that's fine with me.
Then he gave me a requisition to go and have the breast exam. So I go over and I get there and it's just women everywhere.
When I went, the nurses there are very gentle with you. They let you know what they're gonna do.
They put you on this machine and you raise your arm up and you turn to the left or sideways and forward, and the machine presses down on your breast, and then you hold your breath and they take a picture. It's nothing where it's gonna really hurt you. You know, you may have some tender days, but it's not nothing that you couldn't tolerate.
This is a life-saving equipment. Okay, you hear all these scary stories, but until you experience it, don't be afraid, because it's basically just taking pictures of your breast.
I've heard women say, well, it's so painful. I don't want to have to go through that. And I explain to them, it's not painful. It's uncomfortable. And there are a lot of more things that are more painful.
A good pair of high heels, those shoes you just gotta have, hurt more than a mammogram.
A lot of women would tell me, well, it hurts. Well, yeah, it hurts, but cancer hurts worse.
If you like to wear jeans, I got a couple of pair of jeans that cut into my waist that hurt more than a mammogram.
For the little bit of uncomfort that you do feel, it's worth it in order to be able to find something early.
The doctor kept asking me, how did I discover it so soon, But I had been taking mammograms for years before that.
I was 46 years old, getting a mammogram every year, and in the past, I really hadn't had any problem.
For the past, I don't know how many years, 20 or more years, I have had a mammogram. And I think I did it because they say this is the thing to do.
Well, it's important that women know that you cannot skip a year. It's important that you don't get a mammogram every 2 years or every 3 years or when you feel like it. When they say once a year, they mean once a year.
I had been having mammograms routinely over the years and just went for a routine. But because I had been going regularly, as soon as the doctor saw something different, they called me shortly after I returned home.
I had an appointment to take a mammogram in February of that year, and I didn't go because, I just missed them. There's nothing wrong with me, and I didn't go. But I believe if I had went, I think that they would have found the lump, and it wouldn't have been as drastic as it was when I finally went in October.
When I went back to see my primary physician, he walked in the door, I jumped up and hugged him. I said, thank you, thank you, thank you. He said, what was all that for? I said, you saved my life. I said, because if you hadn't been persistent about that mammogram, I said, just think, I could have gone on and on, had that lump. It could have gotten bigger. It could have been worse.
If I had not known how to do the breast exams or had not gone to get my mammograms, then I may not even be sitting here because I wouldn't even know that I have something wrong with me. And by the time I realized it, it may have been too late.
You need to take care of yourself the very best you can, because really that's all you can do. And one thing you need to do, you need to go to your doctors, get your regular checkup, and you need to get a mammogram, if not for yourself, for those who love you.
Please, whatever you do, take that mammogram. I said, because I didn't know I have a lump. I couldn't feel it. The doctor couldn't feel it. But that mammogram showed that I had one. So it is very, very important that you take your mammogram.
The procedure itself only takes about what? I don't even remember. Maybe 10 minutes. 10 minutes to save your life. Is it worth it?